Rhaena Targaryen may be one of the most tragic characters in House of the Dragon. For years, she waited for a dragon that never came. Then, at last, she claimed Sheepstealer, and the joy she had chased her whole life turned into a curse almost immediately. Rhaena was born a Targaryen, raised among dragon riders, and still ended up as the one child in her family who never claimed a dragon. Her mother, Laena Velaryon, rode Vhagar. Her father, Daemon Targaryen, rode Caraxes. Her sister Baela became a dragon rider too, and Rhaena had only an egg that never hatched. Such disappointment is not just personal. In House Targaryen, it is identity. It is status. It is the feeling of being close to greatness. So while everyone else around her became what they were meant to be, Rhaena remained the daughter waiting for something that never answered her back. Then Laena died, and Vhagar was left without a rider. For a brief moment, Rhaena believed that a dragon could still become part of her future. But before Rhaena could claim her, Aemon Targaryen took Vhagar for himself. Although dragons are not like property to be inherited, that moment was devastating. It felt like the final door closing. Rhaena lost her mother, then lost the dragon that might have carried her mother's memory forward. It was one more scar in a life already built from waiting and disappointment. By the time the Dance of the Dragons truly began to consume the realm, Rhaena was still being treated like someone on the edge of history instead of inside it. She was trusted with duty, but not with power. She was sent where others told her to go. She was expected to be loyal, careful, and useful. But useful is not the same as seen. Rhaena's biggest mistake was abandoning Rhaenyra's children to chase Sheepstealer. She may have believed that if she claimed the dragon quickly enough, she could fly straight back to Dragonstone and still be forgiven. In her mind, the dragon was supposed to redeem her. It was supposed to make everything right again. And that desperation makes even more sense when you remember how unhappy she had been with the role Rhaenyra gave her. She was entrusted with the princes and the dragon eggs, and those were not small duties at all. They were the last hope of House Targaryen if all came to ruin. But Rhaena never seemed content with being trusted quietly. She wanted something greater. She wanted power, purpose, and a chance to prove that she could do more than wait. It would be easy to say Rhaena was jealous of Baela, and in a simple sense, she probably was. Baela had the dragon, the confidence, the freedom, and the kind of presence Rhaena always wanted. But jealousy is too small a word for what Rhaena was feeling. She was not just envying her sister. She was grieving the version of herself she thought she was supposed to become. That is why Sheepstealer mattered so much. When the opportunity finally appears, Rhaena does not hesitate for long. She claims Sheepstealer, the wild old dragon that had lived outside the control of the court for so long. For the first time in her life, she is not waiting for a dragon to choose her by accident or inheritance. She is reaching for one herself. And that should have been her triumph. Instead, it becomes the beginning of her downfall. Because Rhaena does not have the luxury of time. She has only just begun to bond with Sheepstealer. The dragon is starting to accept her. He even brings her a sheep, a small but meaningful sign that trust is forming between them. But trust is not the same as readiness. Sheepstealer is still wild, Rhaena is still inexperienced, and war does not wait for either of them to grow into the bond properly. Rhaena comes back to Dragonstone with Sheepstealer, and for a brief moment, it feels like she has finally found where she belongs. She is happy. She says they are home. But Sheepstealer sees the battle unfolding and reacts on instinct, and Rhaena, still riding the high of finally becoming a dragon rider and desperate to prove herself, throws Sheepstealer into the Battle of the Gullet immediately. At first, he burns the enemy ships and looks like the weapon Rhaena has always wanted. But the battle quickly turns chaotic, and once the Triarchy starts striking back, he becomes unstable. He is still wild, still new to her, and still not fully under control, so Rhaena cannot keep him steady for long as he lashes out at whatever is closest. He starts burning the Valyrian ships too, turning the battle into even more confusion and danger. Then Baela sees him. She does not realize it is Rhaena. From her point of view, it looks like an enemy dragon coming through the smoke and fire, so she sends Moondancer toward him. But once she gets closer, she pulls back. Sheepstealer is simply too large for Moondancer to take head-on, and she knows it. After that, Sheepstealer gets provoked and starts chasing Moondancer. That drags Jace into the fight. He comes in on Vermax to protect Baela, ready to strike the threat down. But then he sees Rhaena. He immediately tells Vermax to pull away, realizing too late that this is not an enemy rider. Sheepstealer is already reacting, and he lashes out at Vermax. Vermax dives low to avoid him, but the Triarchy seizes the chance and hits the dragon with a grapnel. Vermax is dragged down into the sea, and Jace stays with him as the dragon sinks. At the last moment, he frees himself, rises back to the surface, only to be struck by the Triarchy's crossbows. So the tragedy at the Gullet is not just that Rhaena made a bad choice. It is that her choice set off a chain reaction in the middle of complete chaos. She wanted to help. She wanted to prove herself. She wanted Sheepstealer to mean something. But the bond was still too new, the dragon was still too wild, and the battle came too fast. That is what turns her joy into a curse. She finally becomes a dragon rider, but she becomes one at the exact moment her choice begins to destroy the people she loves. The dream she spent her whole life chasing does not free her. It burdens her. It isolates her. It leaves her with guilt so heavy that the victory stops feeling like a victory at all. And that guilt is why Rhaena cannot simply go home. How does she face Rhaenyra after all that? How does she explain that she abandoned her assigned duty? How does she say that she wanted to help, that she wanted to redeem herself, that she thought becoming a dragon rider would make everything right again? How does she stand in front of the queen and admit that her first great act as a rider ended in tragedy? She probably cannot. So instead, she hides. She seeks shelter in the Vale, hoping Lady Jane Arryn will protect her. But Jane refuses to let her stay. That leaves Rhaena with nowhere to go. No home, no victory, no forgiveness waiting at the end of the road. That is where the story becomes even more painful, because the emotional center of it is no longer just guilt, it is loneliness. The version of Rhaena now being built in the story is not simply a girl who made a mistake. She is a girl who has spent her whole life feeling abandoned. She is the least visible of Daemon's children, the one without a dragon, the one left to carry duty while others got glory. When Daemon finds her in the cave, the scene becomes a confrontation between all that pain and all that silence. Daemon is shocked to learn that Sheepstealer's rider is Rhaena. He tells her that Rhaenyra blames Sheepstealer and his rider for Jace's death, and Rhaena says she only wanted to help. Daemon tells her to abandon the dragon, go to Pentos with his sons, and leave all this behind. Rhaena refuses and says Sheepstealer is part of her now. Daemon then tells her to come back to King's Landing and admit her mistake, but Rhaena says she cannot face Rhaenyra after what she has done. Then she tells Daemon how she has felt abandoned her whole life. She was the least of his children. She had no dragon. She was lonely, and Daemon himself never gave Rhaena a second thought. She never asked him for anything before, and now she asks him for one thing only, to hide the truth from Rhaenyra. That request traps Daemon completely. If he tells the truth, he destroys his daughter. If he lies, he betrays his wife. So he chooses the lie. He kills a random shepherd, takes the man's head to Rhaenyra, and presents it as if he were Sheepstealer's rider. Rhaenyra is disappointed because she wanted to see the man who killed her son. She wanted to know whether he was acting alone or as an ally of Aemond or Ormond. She wanted the real answer. Rhaenyra's mistress of whispers, Mysaria, does not seem to believe Daemon is telling the truth. And if Mysaria finds proof, or if Rhaenyra somehow pieces it together herself, the damage may become permanent. If Rhaenyra learns the truth, she will likely feel betrayed and deeply unsettled. The secret itself would matter, but even more than that, she may feel that Daemon made a decision without her and kept her out of something that affects her family and her rule. That could do real damage to their relationship. Once Rhaenyra starts wondering what else he has hidden, the lie may grow into distrust, and that distrust could change how she sees him. Instead of feeling like her partner, he may begin to seem like someone who acts on his own and keeps her in the dark. This kind of tension is what Nettles creates between Rhaenyra and Daemon. In the book, Sheepstealer belongs to Nettles, and her closeness to Daemon is what helps deepen Rhaenyra's jealousy and doubt. Nettles becomes more than just a dragon rider. She turns into a symbol of the fear and paranoia growing between them. Rhaenyra eventually comes to believe Nettles and Daemon are too close, and she orders Nettles to be killed. But Daemon learns of the order first, helps Nettles escape, and never returns with her. After that, Nettles disappears from the story with Sheepstealer, and her final fate is unknown. On the show, Rhaena appears to be taking on that same role. But because she is Daemon's daughter, the story feels even more personal and tragic. What was once suspicion between a queen and a dragon seed becomes a conflict between wife, husband, and daughter. And that is what makes Rhaena's arc so painful. Nettles' story in the book already ends in fear, exile, and uncertainty, and Rhaena now seems to be walking toward a similarly lonely fate. She may be misunderstood, isolated, and forced to carry the weight of choices made around her. She did not choose Sheepstealer out of cruelty. She chose him because she wanted to matter, to be seen, and to finally have something that was hers. Sheepstealer is wild, untamed, and alone, and in many ways, so is Rhaena. As for her fate, the show could still go in several directions. She may survive and remain with Sheepstealer. She may stay hidden in the Vale. She may even face Rhaenyra later if the story decides to bring that conflict to the surface. Or the show may give her a better ending than Nettles gets in the book. It is also possible that Rhaena and Sheepstealer will get one final moment together, and one idea people may discuss is whether they could help in the fight against Vhagar. That possibility feels uncertain and a little uncanny, so it may be better saved for another video. For now, though, her story already feels tragic, because once she claimed Sheepstealer, everything around her began to change. She finally reached for the sky, and the sky answered back with fire. Thank you for watching. How do you think Rhaena's story will end in the show? Share your thoughts in the comments. And a special thanks to the artist whose work made this video possible.